Welcome to Caregiver Cast with Elaine Petrucci. Are you overwhelmed raising a family, working full-time, caring for a parent or grandparent? It can be challenging when you're doing it alone. Caregiver Cast helps busy, burned-out professionals reduce their stress and overwhelm to create a better caregiving experience for themselves and their loved one. Caregiver Cast brings caregivers together with experts who provide information in a variety of areas. In each episode, you'll get tips on topics such as finance, legal, medical, self-care, community resources, mindset, and more. We're here to make your caregiving journey a more rewarding one. Acquire the confidence and skills to be a more capable caregiver by implementing the resources and strategies from these expert thought leaders. Get a community of support, resources, and strategies for your caregiving journey inside the Caregiver Lifeline community. Visit caregiverlifelinecommunity.com. And now here's your host, Elaine Petrucci.
Welcome to Caregiver Cast. My name is Elaine Petrucci, your host. My guest today is Kim Sherwood, who will be talking to us about how we can fix any or improve any posture difficulties that we have so we can maintain our balance and prevent falls. And I will formally introduce Kim in just one moment. I am going to give you some idea of her background. Kim is a coach certified in corrective exercise, as well as many different exercise modalities. She has extensive experience helping people resolve issues in their bodies, eliminate muscle and joint pain, and improving movement performance. This is what I need, Kim. This was a practice she did in person. However, the pandemic showed her that she can help people online very successfully. Helping people to resolve their issues so they can step into a pain-free body that serves them is a focus of her online program, Physical Freedom Jumpstart. Her process blends her background with techniques she's learned in order to solve her own issues. She has helped many people who had no previous success with the medical system or other practitioners. Due to her own personal experience with dementia in her family, Kim understands both the challenges caregivers face and the limitations they can have on their time and energy. Her goal is to reach as far as she can to help people. Welcome, Kim, to Caregiver Cast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me here.
Most definitely. I was so intrigued when we first met because I knew that seniors, and even myself, if I don't want to put myself in that category, have trouble with balance. And I think it's really important for caregivers to understand what they can do, not only for themselves, but also for the person that they're caring for. So give us some background, Kim, about how you became interested in helping people correct their posture.
Okay, so I first got into the world of fitness as a personal trainer and then a CrossFit coach. And I was really into Olympic weightlifting and performance sports. But I had issues in my own body that limited me. And the biggest one was I had had daily neck pain for 10 years. And I went to several doctors. Nobody could figure out what it was. And then one day a masseuse kind of released my scapula and part of a tumor popped out.
Oh my goodness.
So I had this tumor removed, which was like the size of an egg. And my neck pain was gone the next day. However, it left my shoulder in a position that didn't serve my body. It was slightly out of place. And as I worked out and increased my strength over the next 10 years, what I did was, instead of fixing that issue, I strengthened that issue into my body, which then not only caused some different pain, it also really limited me in my movement performance. So I ended up developing plantar fasciitis when I was on my feet for long periods for a referee job. And when I went to go get my help correcting my plantar fasciitis, the practitioner I worked with had some very different methodologies. And I realized that I could put these into use. I changed my hip structure. I resolved my shoulder issue, which I'd had for 20 years. And that's when I realized people can very successfully resolve issues that they've had for a long time, whether they're overuse issues, underuse issues, or whether they did not fully recover from surgeries up to their full capacity. I started using this information on my own clients, and then I started teaching it online.
Oh my goodness. It's really amazing that you had this personal experience doing it for yourself first. And I think that makes it much more important because for your clients to know that you've been through the same things that they have.
Absolutely. Allows me to understand my clients much better. And then it also allows me to understand the possibilities of it, makes me see what's going on in people's bodies. I think that our go-to in the US, the way we've been raised is if something hurts, we go to the doctor, as well we should. However, different doctors are only trained in certain things. So for instance, orthopedic surgeons will look for something that's broken that they can fix. But if an issue is caused by a muscle imbalance, lack of skeletal alignment, overuse or underuse issues, those are things that they can't readily see. So what I do is I look at the entire body and reset somebody's body, reset their skeleton, balance their muscles, release their muscles around their joints. And this becomes more and more important as we age, this kind of maintenance work, which most of us were not taught.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I just, from my own experience in terms of falling, I think it's really important, especially if you are caring for someone, a senior, because you have to make sure that you eliminate a lot of not really distractions, but things that would cause falls, like rugs, throw rugs or something like that. But even outside, it makes it hard because you have to get up and down off the curb and things like that. So
absolutely. And we can't control our environment to a certain extent, right? Indoors, definitely. But there are times where we don't have control of our environment. And it's important. And I think I'm just realizing it's even more important than I previously thought. I recently read an article that said that if someone lacks balance, it can shorten their life expectancy by up to 10 years.
yes.
So one, we definitely want longevity, but two, we also want quality of life with our longevity. And then as a caregiver, if you throw that in, it becomes much more challenging because we're not just responsible for ourselves, but another person as well. And helping them maintain their balance while we're keeping our balance. So.
Great point. So can you kind of walk us through the kind of like assessment or what you do when you first meet a client?
I certainly can. When I first meet a client, I go through an extensive history, asking them questions about their background, the different kinds of movement they did through sports or sitting for jobs, driving, things like that. So I go through a background history, as well as any accidents or incidents they've had, reasons they've gone to the doctor, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what their biggest struggles are. But then I also look at them, and I do this over Zoom. I have them wear exercise clothing, and I look at them from the base of their skeleton down to the bottom of their feet and out to their fingertips. And I am looking at the alignment of their skeleton. So, because for example, if a person's foot bones fall, their ankles will start to cave in. When their ankles cave in, this makes their lower leg bones rotate and their knees will kind of come together, which then their upper leg bones go back out to their pelvis. So then, or their hips. And then what happens is all of the stress that they're carrying goes into their knee joint because their legs are not stacked above their feet. And this continues on throughout the body. So I'm looking at their foot and ankle. I'm looking at the angle of their leg bones, their knees, their hips. I'm looking at their hips, whether they are off in different ways. It can be off in many different ways. I'm looking at the curvature of their spine. I'm looking at their shoulders, how their shoulders sit. Okay, and it's very easy to see the disparity in somebody's shoulders. And then as well as how their arm bones are coming out. And this is something people can also do themselves. If they really want to take a good look at their bodies, they think about what is going on. For instance, if somebody has knee pain, they can, the easiest thing to do is take off all your clothing and stand in front of a full length mirror. And what happens is people usually end up looking at the things they don't like. They go, I need to lose weight, or I don't like my skin, but really what they want to do is look at their structure, look at their skeleton, look at their ankles. Are they straight or are they caving in? Look at their knees. Are they straight or are they caving in? Are their femurs rotating in? And these are things that if you look, you can see. People know what straight lines are. So if something's not straight, if their legs aren't straight, there's a reason. And that means that stress, instead of going through their skeleton into the ground, is going into their joints instead. And that stress on your joints, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, makes your joints hurt and can also start to cause issues or problems in the joint. They can look at their spine. Is their lower back really curved? They can look at their shoulders. In fact, so quite often when I look at people, if you look at my trapezius muscles right here, one will be higher on somebody than the other. And that is an indication that your scapula is different, sitting different on one side than the other. It can put a lot of pressure on your neck, can cause a lot of neck pain, as well as other issues. So these are things that I'm looking for, and these are things somebody can see in themselves if they step back and take a look at their whole body.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. That you're looking at your whole body and your skeletal structure so that you can then really pinpoint more specifically
where
what you
issues are. Right. Because where the pain is not always where the issue is. The pain does not always present, where the issue is. It can be upstream or downstream quite often.
Okay. So let's just take a hypothetical situation, a client that you've seen where their hips are here and their knees are like this. How would you, or what would you recommend that person to do so that they're more in alignment?
That's a good question. So when I work with people, my first goal is to, if they have pain, to try to limit that pain as much as possible so that they can be more productive and comfortable in the rest of their life. So if somebody has a hip and a knee issue and they haven't had a major knee accident recently, then I assume that their knee issue is probably coming from their hips, might be coming from their upper legs as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into their hips to try to give them some pain relief. And I'm going to do that by mobilizing all of the hip muscles. So unlocking and mobilizing those muscles. These muscles are really, really deep. They're very primal. Our hip flexors are also our fight or flight muscles. So if we're stressed, they will tighten up and shorten. They tighten up while we're sitting. They're the first muscle to engage when we initiate a step. We use them all the time. They're very deep muscles. So unlocking and releasing the hip flexors takes a certain process, but it's completely possible. I have people use these round soft tools with their own body weight. It's almost like a myofascial release, and they become their own practitioner to get in and unlock those muscles. After that, once we've gotten some relief, what I would do is I would go back down to the bottom of the foot, because the hip and the foot are connected. So they have a big relationship. So if something's been affecting your hip, chances are it's been reflected in your foot somewhat. So after giving them some relief in their hips, I go back to the bottom of their foot, Structure their foot, then restack those leg bones through the knee, making sure that we have good alignment, releasing all of the muscles that are attached to the knee to make sure that everything there is balanced to resolve pain. And then I would go through and restructure those hips on top of the leg bones. And that's by getting into the hip flexors, the deep lateral hip rotators. And I actually even go into the bone. We go into the sits bones. Quite often in an older population, our sits bones start out here, they start to come together. We can release our muscles and get into the bone and restructure those bone and move those sits bones to where they should be, to a place that better serves our body so that we have better posture, so that we have a better stride and we walk and step better, which is another key to balance. A lot of people, as their body tightens up and their bones their skeleton kind of collapses, people tend to shorten their stride. They tend to step out more on the front of their foot. These things hinder our balance. So when we move those sits bones and then we revisit that movement pattern of walking, we can really help somebody's balance. Also, if the hip bones start to close in towards the pubic bones, they can kind of get stuck there. We can get in alongside the pubic bone and release those muscles and open those hips back up. So I get deep into the muscles to unlock and mobilize them, and then make sure they're balanced around a joint. But in doing so, we also get into the skeleton to align it. And we also actually go right into the bone to take some stress off the bone as well.
Oh, that is just awesome. I had read about deep flexor muscles, and even though I did have anatomy and physiology many years ago, I was even puzzled about how to even reach those muscles. So it's nice to know that you have a technique where you can do that.
Exactly. It's totally possible. It's just not very common. And as I said, it's not something that most of us are taught. And it takes learning a specific technique, and we do use a tool. You can stretch your hip flexor muscle, but I'll give you an example. If my muscle's tight and locked up and I try to stretch it, I'm going to be able to stretch it a little bit, but I'm going to be kind of limited because that muscle has gotten denser and harder. But if I come in and unlock and release that muscle, then I can stretch it really effectively. So what we kind of do is our muscles kind of turn into shoe leather. And what we want to do is get fluid going through those muscles, unlock them, and turn them more into silly putty. I know that your audience is probably an audience that remembers silly putty. So something more pliable. Our muscles should be elastic and long. That is what allows us to access our muscular strength.
Okay.
It's one of the things that allows us to move our skeleton properly. It is one of the things that helps in balance. And then, a lot of people don't have to spend a ton of time focusing on strength. You need enough strength to do your daily activities and what you want to be able to do in life. The biggest thing people need to focus on usually is mobility. They need to increase their mobility so that they can access their muscular strength through a full range of motion. And for balance, people need to focus on the lower leg. So this is a huge key. This could be for you as well. Our shin, the muscles around our ankle and our shin and our lower calf, these are all balance muscles that we use. Our hips are responsible for balance in a lot of ways. So our hip muscles, glutes, which is part of our core. So those muscles are responsible for balance as well. So a healthy foot and ankle and a healthy foot structure definitely help.
Okay. That sounds fantastic. I'm just going to deviate a little bit here.
Okay.
I've been working on presentations, and I either have to have a stacked heel or, a pointed heel. And I feel really uncomfortable in those pointed heels because I just don't feel like I'm in balance. So if we're wearing shoes like that, not to say that many seniors would be doing that, but how could one, I guess, correct their balance so that when you're wearing different footwear.
So one thing you can think about is when you have these shoes on, where is your weight on your foot? If your weight feels like it's forward slightly and it's on the balls of your feet, that is probably going to make you feel less balanced. It's also going to lead to tightening up your calf muscles and your Achilles tendons. If you can shift your weight so that your weight is back further, so that it is actually resting on those heels. And that might feel weird with the pointed heel, but so your weight's a little bit more on your heel. So it's a little more even on your foot rather than just being on the front of your foot. So it's shifted. So it's a little bit more even on your foot, distributed. That could help a lot. So you want to think about your posterior chain. You want to think about your back muscles, your glutes, all of those muscles kind of helping support your body, not just the front. Almost all of us spend most of the time in the front of our bodies.
Right.
We are sitting, we are texting, we are driving, we are working, we are helping somebody, and everything's done in the front. We need to shift back to the back of our bodies.
Great advice. So I have a friend that has a back problem, and I was explaining to her, and I was doing it, attempting to do like the heel toe pattern. And I found that a great challenge because I tend to go, my friend and I both go toes first and then heel. So how can somebody correct that? Like I said, I was just explaining it to this friend, and I was even having trouble doing it, and I don't really have a back problem. So explain that, please.
So a great thing to do is to walk barefoot, preferably in something like grass, if you can.
Okay.
When we walk barefoot, we have to stride more naturally, or we can stride more naturally. Okay. Shoes a lot of times are stiff. They don't allow us to peel through our foot.
Right.
So by, like I said, first of all, standing properly, getting that weight to the more towards the back of your foot, making sure that it's evenly distributed. You don't just want it all the way on your heels. You don't want to be rocking back, but it shouldn't just be on the ball of your foot. We want it nice and even. Getting used to that weight being positioned there and opening up our hips all the way. A lot of people are walking with their hips slightly bent. So engage our glutes. Okay, squeeze our glutes, open our hips all the way. Think about standing up straight, pushing the top of your head to the sky. Okay. Once you're straight and you have your balance, then you can start stepping and patterning through that heel toe. And if we don't have shoes on, then we don't have anything artificially controlling our foot.
That's a great point. You don't.
So, exactly, because even exercise shoes, gym shoes, some of them have quite a bit of a heel. Some of them are very stiff. So barefoot and start focusing on that patterning. If people can go outside in grass, I find that, or sand, that's a great place to start to pattern.
Okay.
If not, inside, you can use a hard floor or carpet, but focus on that patterning barefoot. And then once you kind of get that down and it feels natural, or at least you feel like you can control it, then you can switch to a shoe. And I would first start with a shoe that does not have a lot of rise. So something flatter, and that has quite a bit of flexibility to it.
Okay.
And practice with that, and then start to translate that to other shoes.
Great advice. I found that it felt really kind of awkward doing that, even in like tennis shoes, doing the heel toe. It just felt like I was more unsteady and it didn't feel, I guess, comfortable. But however, I see that you have to practice it more first without shoes and then kind of build up to the kind of shoe that you want to wear.
Exactly. And while you're practicing, a lot of people have some trepidation or it feels weird. So they tend to look down. People tend to look in front of them, and that doesn't help our balance. We have to stand up straight, right? Use your back muscles, use your glutes to stand up straight and look forward. Choose an area where you already know there's nothing in front of you on the ground. So then there's no reason to look down, and focus your gaze out into the distance. That helps a lot.
Okay.
I find that a lot of times people, if they've had a fall or they've lost their balance, they're scared. And that's why they reach out with the front of their foot first. It's almost like they're testing the ground. So a lot of it is go internal. We have to calm our minds down, right? And try to relax.
Right.
Just step out and have confidence to step out with that heel first. That's why you want to choose an area that's safe. You know that nothing's there. And so that you can confidently step out with your heel first too.
Yes, for me, for example, I think I'm working with you very soon. I find that when I do things like walking, or just things in the house, an activity in the house, I don't, I guess, take into account my environment. So there may be something in the street or on the sidewalk that I'm not prepared for. And that's when I fall. And I just was wondering, like you said, just practicing this natural pattern over and over and over again would help maintain my balance, because I tend to look down because I want to see what's there. And that's
there are two things, because ideally we would like our body to be prepared for any environment, right? Because as we said before, you can't control it when you're outside. So practicing where your weight is and how you're walking and your stride and your balance in a safe area first, so that you become comfortable and confident in your stride, and then take that outside to a different area, or even inside to a more crowded space. That's one thing, because we don't want to just, sure, you'll look down, but we don't want to look down right in front of us. If your gaze is out, your peripheral vision is going to be able to catch things in the distance that are coming up before you even get close to them. But two, we also need mobility in the rest of our body. So we need mobility in the rest of our muscles, because what happens is, if something happens, there can be a little buckle on the sidewalk that perhaps you didn't see, right? We want our body to be mobile enough to adjust, to be able to quickly adjust. And if we are tight or stiff, we're not going to be able to adjust quickly. We're also, if we do trip and catch ourselves, or tripping and falling can be bad. You can hurt yourself that way. What's almost worse sometimes is tripping and catching yourself. Because when you catch yourself and those muscles tighten up, if they are imbalanced around your joint, you're going to put a lot of stress on a joint, and chances are you can incur an injury that way. Where if your muscles are mobile and balanced, your body's going to move better, and it's less likely to hurt itself.
Oh, well, that sounds reasonable.
Cause its own injuries,
Right. Because for me, anyway, my falls happen so quickly, I don't even know. Next thing I know, I'm down. And so that's, I guess, and I've heard, like you had mentioned earlier, that the more you fall and kind of like partially recover or not recover, you're more apt to fall more times. So I guess as a speech pathologist, I'm really aware of head injuries. However, I'm also kind of really more cognizant of where I'm walking. So let me give you an example. It was raining yesterday and I had to go to the mall. And now in the streets, they have those metal platforms, when it goes down at a crosswalk.
Like from the
metal
curb
plates that are but they have like those little bumps on them.
Okay.
I made sure yesterday, because I had sneakers and I knew that I could slip and fall on the metal, I avoided that, but I had to also then be aware that I was near a curb and I had to watch how I was going down
Mm-hmm.
the gutter. So I knew enough to kind of slow down, because I know I tend to do things really quickly. I just knew that that was going to be more dangerous than stepping down into the gutter than it would have been going down the metal piece. Can you address that a little, please?
Yes. So you're right. There's a different way of moving, whether you're going down that little metal ramp or you're stepping down into the gutter.
Right.
You're going to use different muscles and a different range of motion, and stepping down. I mean, either one, I think a lot of it depends on your comfort level and how much of a slipping factor you think that is. I definitely do think somebody would have to take shorter steps
Right.
going down the metal ramp than they normally would. We don't have those here. It hardly ever rains where I live, unfortunately.
Lucky you.
No, we could use it. But both of those things involve three things.
Okay.
These are the three things that I address in my program with people: having a mobile, balanced body, having proper movement patterns.
Okay.
Because what happens when people have issues in their body, they develop strange movement patterns or issues in their mind, kind of like with the stride, right? And just because we fix our bodies and align and mobilize them doesn't mean that our brain automatically uses better movement patterns. It can stick with those old movement patterns that don't serve us. So mobilize and balance our bodies. Then we have to visit movement patterns and make sure we're using movement patterns that serve our bodies, so our bodies can serve us.
Exactly.
And then we need to make sure that we have enough strength to do the things we want to do. I just worked with a lady who, she said, since 2009 has gone up the steps one at a time. She couldn't alternate legs. She would go step, 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 always stepping up with one foot, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
So that's a long time. That's 13 years.
Wow.
She came to me for knee pain, but she also had some massive shoulder and neck issues. She had plantar fasciitis. So we resolved her issues, but then we worked on movement patterning. But for her, strength was a big issue because she had become very sedentary because she couldn't do anything.
Right.
Mostly sat on the couch. So we also had to work on strength for her.
Right.
And teach her how to use the right parts of her body to be able to go down the stairs safely, which is the same way we would step off a curb safely or go down a ramp safely. A lot of times, as I said, people are in the front of their bodies, their weight's in the front of their bodies, and it doesn't serve our bodies and it's not safe. So learning to use the back of our body and learning to recruit those muscles, using hip mobility to step down off of something is very important.
Thank you very much for answering that question. My sneakers were flat and they had a little bit of ribbing on the sole, but I don't think it would have been enough to, have any traction on that metal piece that was on the sidewalk itself. So, and I also was crossing a street, and I also knew that it was a pretty big intersection where there would have been a lot of cars. So
I would think that if they're putting something like that out in public, there would have to be a certain level of safety with the metal. But again, shoes do make a difference.
Right.
Another thing that can be slippery is those pavement markings, like those stripes on the pavement. They look like paint, but they're actually kind of like stickers that they put on the street.
Oh, okay.
And I just know that from riding motorcycles, right? Motorcyclists need to really avoid braking on those because they are super slippery. So that's another area to watch. But, things can happen anywhere. I was walking my puppy 11 years ago, and I had to take her out like 4 a.m. And I was walking down a slope and I had Ugg boots on, also not the best thing to wear. if it's wet. The sprinklers had come on. And
Mm,
so I had the Ugg boots on. I was walking down the slope. I slipped and I caught myself. And when I caught myself, this was before I was really into the work that I'm doing now. I had some muscle imbalances. So I ended up spraining my MCL, which I, recovered from, but it took a couple of months. So that's an example where slipping and catching yourself can be bad. And, I was trying to be as careful as I could be half asleep, but
not doing it well. Okay.
So footwear does definitely make a difference too in those situations,
Well, it does. And I think I tend to tense up more because I've had falls where I don't see and I do like a face plant. So that makes me much more, I guess, tense, like you were saying. So I'm not using my muscles correctly, and I'm just tensing up everywhere because I have to watch more carefully where I'm walking. And like you mentioned, we both mentioned the shoes. So it just makes me feel like there's got to be a better way to navigate my world than doing this.
I think being able to have confidence in a body that serves you is really priceless. And the problem is most people think that they need more strength. I'm telling you, at least 50% of the people that come to me, the first words out of their mouth is, I know I just need more core strength. And I'm like, well, maybe not. You might have enough core strength. You might just not be using your core properly. A lot of people don't know how to engage their core properly. Or they might not be able to engage their core properly because they have a muscle imbalance that's preventing them from getting their rib cage and their spine and their hips in the proper alignment. So a lot of people, in order to develop more movement and more confidence in their body, launch into exercise. Exercise is the last thing you do. There are a bunch of other things you need to do before the exercise, because if you have an issue in your body and you exercise with it, you will strengthen that issue into your body. You will actually make it worse. This is the biggest concept I think that people need to get. You will strengthen that issue into your body. So what you need to do is dial it back, resolve that issue, fix the movement patterns, and then strengthen a corrected body that is really like moving the way nature intended it to move and the way it's supposed to. And that sounds like a long, difficult process, but if you know the right things, it only takes a couple of weeks. It doesn't take that long, but it's doing things in the right order. And that's what I was talking about when I say none of us were taught the right maintenance techniques for our body. And this is how people resolve their issues. The information's out there, but it is just, we're still doing things the way we did back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And we know so much more now. So it's really just learning new skills, and anybody can do this. Anybody can become their own expert in their own body.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I love it. Can you give our listeners 3 takeaways from what we talked about today?
Yes. I would say the biggest one, biggest 3, first of all, as I said, if you have an issue in your body, not just launch into strength training. You will strengthen that issue into your body. It needs to be resolved first. Another takeaway is the older we get, the more important mobility becomes. Mobility work is everything. And I remember the first time I saw this 76-year-old lady that used to train where I trained, she was doing the splits. And, I was amazed. And yeah, she was doing the splits. And I was amazed. And she said to me, this was a long time ago, and it had a profound impact on me. She said, flexibility is just like anything else. You get out of it what you put into it. So we have to put our effort into the right places, okay? Into mobility, into movement patterning and resolving our issues before strengthening. And then the last thing is, we didn't get into like real serious issues, but for people that have issues that they have not been able to resolve, which is a lot of people who've come to me. They've been to orthopedists, they've been to physical therapy, they're going to chiropractors and massage therapists. And they think that their issue, a lot of people have given up hope and they think that their issue can't be resolved. And I want to say that the body has remarkable restorative and healing powers.
Okay.
Somebody in that situation, they just haven't talked to the right person yet. They haven't talked to the person with the right information. And chances are that person is out there. They just need to keep the faith no matter how hard it is. Keep pressing forward and keep looking for that person or that information because they're out there. And this is why I'm happy to work with people online now. It allows me to reach beyond my little community and work with people in Australia, the other side of my state, the other side of the country. So,
Kim, this was so informative. Thank you so much. I think this is such an important topic, especially as we age. And this is something that, you know, we as caregivers can help our senior with if we find, like you said, the right person such as you. So thank you so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you. And anybody that has any questions can feel free to book a call with me. It's free. And I can give people clarity around their particular situation, which can be really helpful if people don't know where to go or what to do. So.
Fantastic. Can you tell us how we can reach you?
Yes. So let me make sure that I give you the right link. They can reach out to https colon / that's www.alldayequestrian.com/book-call. And I can send that to you. I have horses and train horses for fun when I'm out working, and work with a lot of equestrians. So, yeah.
But it sounds like you have a very illustrious career, and I think this is really so important, not only for myself, but however, it's for other caregivers, because this is really, if we can stop a fall or broken hip, oh my gosh, it would be so wonderful.
Caregivers, a lot of times, I mean, I had dementia in my family, so I'm familiar with the caregiver process, and caregivers don't have a lot of time. They're unable to leave their house frequently to see a practitioner. And you can resolve your issues and maintain your body from the comfort of your own home. And most of the people that work with me, they'll spend maybe 30 minutes a day. And even for people who are really tired, I have tips to make things easier and quicker.
Oh, great.
So, yeah. So people need to know that they can do this from home. They can become their own expert and they can heal their on bodies.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on again. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Caregiver Cast today. Get a community of support, resources, and strategies for your caregiving journey inside the Caregiver Lifeline community. Visit caregiverlifelinecommunity.com. Get involved with the show. Send your email to mpetrusi2002@gmail.com. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of Caregiver Cast.